So, good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today to introduce to you the topic of agrarian disputes. So, when did the agrarian dispute started? During the late 16th and 17th century, the early Spanish conquistadors arrived in the Philippines, and they were awarded a land grant which can be used tracing the origin prior states. So it means it started when the Spanish arrived in the Philippines and they called Spanish conquistadors. So what is Spanish conquistadors means? From the word conquistadors, it means he who conquers. The conquistadors are those men who took up arms to conquer, subjugate, and convert native population in the world.
Ang mga Spanish conquistador ay nagbigay ng malaking lupain na tinatawag na Señor de Ganado Mayor. Señor de Ganado Mayor is a tract of land measuring 1,742 hectares, and Caballeros is a tract of land measuring 42.5 hectares. Noon ang namamalakad ay ang Spanish haciendores. Sila ay hindi nagtagumpay sa pagpalago sa lupaing ito dahil sa tatlong rason. First is Spanish population in the Philippines is transit. It was the common practice for Spanish administrators to return to Spain after having served in the country. Means, common practice na ito ng Spaniards na bumalik sa kanilang lugar pagkatapos pagsilbihan ng isang bansa. Second is market for livestock products, which haciendas offered remained relatively small until the latter part of the Spanish colonial period. Dahil sa bilihing product sa sindang ito ay nanatiling mababa dahil sa Spanish colonial period. Third is the Galilean trade that was based in Manila offered a bigger economic rewards and attracted more Spaniards. Dahil sa tinatawag nating Galilean trades ngayon kung saan inoffer nila ito sa Manila at ang mga Spaniards ay nahumaling pumunta sa Manila at magbinta dito. And it's because the Spanish hacienderos lost their interest and inclination to develop their lands, but religion soon took over the task.
Agrarian relation in the haciendas developed in the 16th and 17th centuries. The composition of the social structure found in the haciendas was primarily of two lay brothers, administrator at the top and cultivating tenants below. So, sino tong lay brothers administrator na sinasabi dito? Lay brother is the member of the religious orders, particularly in the Catholic Church. They fulfill the rule focused upon manual service and secular moderns. And we have the cultivating tenants. As we all know o sa hindi pa nakakaalam, ang mga tenants occupy a land or a property as the rented from their landlords. By the mid-18th centuries, a system is presented to be used as a basis to expanding system. This system is useful for to continue and growth of the land. So we call this a inquilinato system. To visualize the perspective and position of the inquilinato system, we have in their exact visual of the system. First, we have the landlords, which is presented the peak of the pyramid, and to be followed the inquilinos, and lastly have a sharecroppers. So this three-pointing system is also called the three-tiered system.
Hacienda di Calamba. In 1759, not much is known about the Hacienda di Calamba rather than it was owned by the several Spanish laymen. So wala sila kabalo o kinsa jud ang tag-iya sa Hacienda di Calamba. Ang iya lang nahibaluan ay ang tag-iya isa siya sa isang Spanish layman. Don Manuel Jauregui, a destitute Spanish layman, in 1957, he donated the lands to the Jesuits. So when you see Jesuits, they are the member of Society of Jesus. On a condition that he would be allowed to live Jesuits monastery for the rest of his life. So the Jesuits will claim ownership of the land for 8 years. They were expelled from the Philippines through the command of King Charles III on February 27, 1767. So in the same year, isa sa Spanish layman nga nag-donate sa yuta nga si Don Manuel Jauregui then after 8 years, na-expelled sila from the government nga gipirmahan ni III, King Charles III. As the result of expulsion, the Hacienda di Calamba and the other Jesuits' properties were confiscated by the government and put under Office of Jesuits' Properties o giconfiscate sila sa government. In 1803, the government sold the 16,424 hectares property at Don Clemente de Azanza for 44,500 pesos in 1803. In 1833, Don Azanza died, and the property was bought by the Dominicans for 52,000 pesos. Since nasa kamay na ng government yung Hacienda di Calamba at iba pang Jesuits properties, ay gibaligya nila sa isang Spanish layman, which is si Don Clemente de Azanza sa halagang 44,507 pesos. After 30 years, ang tag-iya sa yuta nga si Don Clemente de Azanza ay namatay rin siya. That was on 1833. Since namatay si Don Clemente de Azanza, gipalit na pud sa mga Dominikanong praile nga nagkandidat og 52,000 pesos. The measure of the land is 16,424 hectares. By this time, kumalat na sa isang karatig na bayan ang tungkol dito sa pagbili ng mga Dominikanong praile doon sa lupa. So, a lot of families had migrated to the Hacienda di Calamba to find the economic opportunities, and Rizal's ancestors are one of them, and they become one of the haciendas, principal in inquilinos. So, daghan og family ang nag-migrate in case of economic opportunities. So, isa na sa family nga nag-migrate ay ang pamilya ni Jose Rizal. And although the land in Calamba were leased to several families, at ang pamilya ni Rizal ang nakakuha og pinakauna o pinakadako nga measuring approximately 380 hectares. So, in 1833, Pasiano Rizal wrote how the friars were collecting rents without receipt. 2 years later, the tenants failed to pay because the rent had increased while the prices of the sugar will remain low. So, in 1833, gisulat ni Pasiano Rizal about sa hindi pagbalik ng mga resibo ng mga praile sa kanilang mga renta. And after 3 years that, wala na nakabayad ang mga tenants sa ilang mga renta tungod sa nagkaanam na og kataas ang mga presyo sa mga pagrenta. Then ang ilang presyo sa sugar is maura gyapon, wala ning taas. Then as a punishment, the Dominicans declared that the land into the vacants and invited the residents from the other towns to take over the tenants. So, the change against the friars continued with Rizal. Brother-in-law nga si Mariano Herboso and complaining about the annual increase of the rentals folly irrigation system and the failure to issue receipt. Then, ang brother-in-law ni Rizal nagreklamo tungod sa pag-angat og renta ug palpak ang sistema ng mga irigasyon at palpak din sa pagbigay ng mga resibo ng mga renta. Then, additional problems is that the prices of the sugar will continue to decline in the world market due to the worst of happenings. Then, si Pasiano Rizal decided to give back his lands to the land friars and clearing the land elsewhere. So in 1897, the colonial government demanded from the tenants of Hacienda de Calamba a report on the income of production of the state because they suspected that Dominicans were evading payment for their taxes. The complained and submitted a report. They also attached their petition authored by Jose Rizal. So, pinautos ng mga colonial government na sa mga tenants ng Hacienda de Calamba na mag-submit sila og report of income nila or production services of state tungod kay gisuspend nila ang mga Dominikanong praile na hindi na nagbabayad ng mga renta or buwis. At ito naman ay agarang isununod ng mga tenants ng Hacienda de Calamba. At the same time, mag-submit po sila og report or petition nga si Jose Rizal mismo ang nagsulat na hindi sila nagbabayad ng mga renta or resistance sa kanilang land or yuta. So, in 1891, friars to began who evac refused to pay rents. One of them who were exiled the remote area in the country in Rizal's family. So, noong nagsimula na magpalayas yung mga tao, yung mga praile, isa nito ang pamilya ni Jose Rizal, na ipinalayas patungo sa malayong lugar. Yung pagpalayas nito ay pampawalang bisa lamang kung may isang gobernador o general na makapagbibigay decree na sila ay pwedeng magstay or sila ay pwedeng aalis din. The experience affected Rizal deeply, and the increasing despair he felt would be reflected in his second novel, which is ang El Filibusterismo.
This chapter represented a brief history of the hacienda from its beginning as a royal land grant rewarded to Spaniards who had rendered exemplary service to the Spanish crowns. Later, these lands came into the possession of the friars by way of purchase or donation. This chapter also pointed out the changed landlord-tenant relationships from a two-third relationships to a three-third, one with landlords, inquilinos, and sharecroppers.